I'm Rob Dansman, and this is The Better Semester, where I provide insight and actionable advice to parents of college students. I'm a nationally certified counselor and licensed clinical mental health counselor, specializing in work with college students and their parents to improve mental health, organization, and motivation. Today I'm talking about words, and more specifically a set of words I refer to as my dirty dozen. This is another episode pulled from my blog at motivatecounseling.com. Over my 2 decades working in mental health, a series of words have consistently popped up which seem to get in the way of progress for college students. As you'll see, many of my dirty dozen help students avoid responsibility and hide from fear and hold them back from a better semester. As parents, you can challenge your son or daughter when you hear any of these slip out. Let's go through the list now and get started. Number 1, should. The S word. This is my favorite one to hate. Should assumes there's a universal correct way people and events need to turn out, as if everything is preordained. Things should be a certain way. I should be a sophomore, not a freshman still. They should have invited me. Just because we don't get what we want or need doesn't mean there's something wrong. Sometimes, and many times, things just don't work out. The world doesn't owe us anything. What's the alternative? I wish I had been able to stay more focused on studying when I was a freshman. I'd like it if they invited me. Replace should with an expression of what we desire. Number 2, try. The T word. Try leaves open the possibility we will not accomplish something. While this sounds simply like thinking realistically about the outcome of something, it's a psychological tool we unknowingly use to avoid responsibility if we don't get something done. I tried to upload my paper, but couldn't get into Canvas. I tried emailing the professor, but the internet was down. I'm trying not to drink, but it's just too hard. What's the alternative? While it's really tempting to think the replacement for try is something like I will, don't fall for it. I will is only appropriate if you've got a magic 8-ball. The better replacement is I did. Comment on what has been done or not done rather than promising the future. Number 3, fair. The only F word I really care about. Yeah, of course we could say, well, son, life's not fair. Yeah, but it's important to break this down a little bit more. Saying something is not fair presumes things need to be equal, just, and following an expected script. Fair presumes there's a contract the world agreed to with us. If I work hard, I'm owed something. If my sister got a new car when she graduated, I should get a car when I graduate. Sounds like a contract. Sounds transactional. What's the alternative? Instead of fair, how about commenting on how you felt when you didn't get what you wanted or needed? I feel disappointed I didn't get a car. I feel frustrated my parents seem to privilege my sister over me. Way better, way more effective. Number 4, expect. A big part of my practice is teaching students and their parents that most suffering comes from the gap between our expectations and our reality. If I expected a client to be thrilled with one of my amazing insights, but instead they looked at me with utter confusion, I'd suffer, or at least feel disappointment, and maybe even take it personally. What's the alternative? Instead of talking about expectations for a class, a professor, or how our semester will unfold, try thinking and speaking in the language of goals. Expectations are attachments. Goals are intentions. Compass headings, something to aim for, but not necessarily to attach to. Number 5, upset. I'm going to make this one real quick. Upset is not a feeling. It's something that happens to an apple cart or chessboard or a table with dishes and silverware on them. When kids lose their mind, they toss things. What's the alternative? Change upset to mad or angry or sad or hurt. These are feelings and communicate more specifically how you felt in a situation. Number 6, balance. There isn't really balance in the world or nature. There's definitely not much balance in our lives. Even the happiest or most satisfied among us don't experience balance. Balance is for scales and tires. Life is a pendulum. Balance isn't the goal. Avoiding the extremes of the swing is what makes life great. What's the alternative? Recognize the swing. Acknowledge the highs and lows. Observe the pain and happiness. Learn to sit with it all. Number 7, starving. It's more than hyperbole. When I have students say they were starving, I'll typically ask them to clarify. Not because I'm stupid and don't know what it means to starve, but because part of my job is to challenge and improve clients' distress tolerance. Starving, while innocent enough, is an indication of laziness. It's a simple example of not thinking in a nuanced way. None of my clients are actually starving. They're hungry or bored or lonely or tired. Challenging them to scan and explain what they're actually feeling and thinking teaches them to slow down and observe. So what's the alternative? Rather than saying you're starving or dying, use more specific feeling words that can be helpful in solving the immediate dilemma. Number 8, literally. Most of the students I work with talk about being literally dead, literally tired, or literally starving. They're not. They use the term literally for emphasis. It's lazy and not effective at communicating what they are actually feeling and thinking. Once again, what's the alternative? I encourage clients to drop literally. Use more accurate language. It takes the client being observant of what they are thinking and feeling. Number 9, always. Students regularly say things always happen to them, or they always feel a certain way. I challenge them to describe more specifically how often things actually happen. I challenge them to consider why they refer to things always happening. Is it because it feels like that thing or situation is constant? Is it expected? This makes them consider how they expect things in their life will go and how they'll feel. Always allows us to lead a life unchallenged and hide. What's the alternative? When do you feel that way? Be specific. When have people hurt you? Be specific. Most questions you ask lately have more detail and nuance if you just don't allow for always to be the answer. Number 10, never. Same as with always. Never is often used too easily. It provides an oversimplistic description of whatever we're facing. I'll never find someone to love me. That's 100% fear speaking and not necessarily based on objective analysis of one's life. What's the alternative? Be specific. Describe the feelings and thoughts. I'm afraid no one will ever love me. Number 11, need. The word need is so often confused with want. At the risk of sounding like one of those crotchety old farts that thinks all young people are snowflakes, I do believe that kids are taught, unintentionally of course, that their wants and needs are indistinguishable from each other. What's the alternative? It's real simple on this one. Use the word need for stuff at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs pyramid. For example, food, shelter, clothing, water. We need those things. Use the word want for everything else. Number 12, can't. And now for the last of our naughty words. Can't sometimes means won't, but not always. When people say they can't do something like get a job or improve their GPA, these are examples of can't means won't. Students want things to be better. They want a better GPA. They want that job lined up for after graduation. They, more accurately, are saying they don't know how or don't have the motivation to do the hard stuff necessary to get what they want. Sometimes can't really does mean can't. Jumping across a 20-foot gap between two buildings? Yeah, I can't do that. For most of us, can't is the lazy way of expressing fear or some other uncomfortable feeling about a process or outcome we want. So what's the alternative to can't? Instead of saying can't, encourage the use of asking a question. How? How can I do something? Or what's getting in the way of me doing this thing? what can parents do with all of this? I know you have less and less control over what your college student does, but gentle nudges work. Sending links or blog posts or YouTube videos work. Also, until we die, we're still role modeling. So you may want to consider your relationship with My Dirty Dozen. Words change how we perceive ourselves. The way we perceive ourselves can change how we act. Okay, that's it for this episode on My Dirty Dozen. For more information, check out my blog at motivatecounseling.com or my 2 books on Amazon. Just search for my name, Rob Dantzman.